Hi, this is Ed Harrow at HCAM, and today we're going to continue on our theme of like first responder people. You remember a couple weeks ago we did fire department. Today we're doing nursing. And probably most of you don't know, but I've had a lengthy experience with nurses, and I have a warm spot in my heart for them. So I have three on here today, and we're going to talk about nursing and how nursing has changed over a period of time of their careers. So our first guest was greatly influenced by his mother, whom he watched as she worked her way through nursing school and saw how much she enjoyed her time working at the Bethany Hospital in Framingham. After signing on as the call guy for the fire department, he got interested in EMT work and took certification classes. After a brief sojourn of 18 years in another field, he followed his mother's footsteps, went to nursing school, and began his nursing career in the Massachusetts prison system, a logical segue from his 18-year role as an enforcer on hockey rinks. You might know who he is, and today he's the clinical director of operations for a facility. Next, we have a woman who grew up in Holliston, and after graduating from Holliston High School, she received a full boat scholarship to the Newton Wellesley School of Nursing, which paid for everything, even her shoes. She's worked in the OR as an industrial nurse at the old GM plant in Framingham, another stint in the OR, which she said was her favorite, capped off her nursing career with another stint as an occupational nurse at Bose, dealing with many related facets in safety and hazardous materials and so forth. And along the way, she found the time and dedication to be a member of the Hopkinton Board of Health. And our last guest started out in Louisiana, where she earned her BS in nursing and began her career in the New Orleans area. She started out in the high-pressure hospital ICU and critical care units. Since then, she spent time in employee health, implementing health and safety programs. Next to benefit from her dedication were pharmaceuticals and medical devices, where she provided oversight in clinical trials and nurse education. Before entering her current role in public health, she worked in the Natick VNA, where she implemented a telehealth monitoring system for chronically ill patients. So I welcome Brendan Tedstone, Nancy Peters, and Simone Carter to this talk. And as I said, I had a lengthy history dealing with nurses and the care that nurses give. And my limited experience says that amongst many other people who do not receive the public support and gratitude that they should get are nurses. And so with that, I'd like to kind of hear your comments and your thoughts. I have things I can add, but I'd like to hear you kind of discuss your own experiences.
You want me to go first?
I don't care.
All right. So as Ed said, I did have a little career playing a little hockey, and it was a great career. However, watching my mom do what she did in my formative years, watching her, go to nursing school full time while she drove a bus part time and do everything she could to put food on our table, to be the nurse, to become a nurse, and then to see how much she enjoyed that was wonderful for me. But then when I joined the fire department and I got on the ambulance and running the squad, I saw that was that's the area that I enjoyed most. So then after I stopped playing hockey, I had my wife had said, at some point you're going to have to decide when you grow up what you want to do for a living. So I thought it was, my mom was a nurse and my dad was a welder. I couldn't weld, so I said I might as well go be a nurse. So I went to nursing school. Right out the chute, I got a job at the prisons, and I was there for about 3 years, maybe a little bit more than 3 years. And I worked my way up to the maximum security prison. I handled all the trauma there. It was a very, very fun job, if you can call working in trauma fun. But I decided giving good care to bad people wasn't the route that I wanted to take as a nurse. So I remember doing a round of clinicals at Marianne Morse in Natick. So I went there. When I got tired of the prison, got hired on the spot as a weekend nurse. They call it a Baylor nurse, where you guarantee 12 hours every Saturday, every Sunday, and they pay you for 40. I did that for about a year, and then I got promoted to supervisor and then the nursing director. Then I got moved over to the Heritage in Framingham, where I was the nursing director there, and now I'm over in Marlborough overseeing our I have a nursing director that works with me, and I oversee the entire medical process there. So it's been a wonderful career. I don't sign as many autographs as I did as a nurse. I mean, as a nurse as I did as a hockey player, but the level of satisfaction that you get out of being a nurse is, in my eyes, it's second to none. It really is. It's nice. And I'll tell you, I've taken a lot of ribbing from my friends that I played hockey with, making fun of me that I'm a nurse. These guys were still playing after I retired, and now they're calling me and saying, now that they're all retired, they're calling me and saying, hey, how do you get into nursing school? So it's been a pretty crazy career path, but this is one that is definitely sticking. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about how COVID has changed our industry a little bit, but just as my welcome breakthrough here, this is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to add one thing to your comments, and that was during COVID, you had a terrible job that you had to do, and I felt deeply for you at that time.
So that was on my list to bring up, because one of the most impactful things that we do as nurses, when we hear Ed say, you guys do a great job and you're underappreciated, we don't feel underappreciated. I don't anyways. But we are definitely, we understand the rigors that we go through. And I remember during COVID, I would routinely get a call from Nancy asking just how I was doing. And not that I needed any solidification of what an awesome person she was, but that was just, to me, just a really wonderful thing that out of the blue she'd call and say, hey, I know this is crazy right now. How are you doing? Like, do you need to talk? And I am an open book. If you ask a question, you're going to get an answer. So she's very instrumental.
Well, I came up to nursing from a little different perspective. I had a scholarship from Newton Wesleyan, from the Teachers Association in Holliston. So I had a free ride. Then nursing education was pretty different. We were trained in the hospital, at least I was. There were some nursing colleges, but I didn't go that route. And upon graduation, I worked in the operating room for a few years, had children, and then went back to do probably the first outpatient operating room, so we didn't have to go through the protocols for sterility in the regular operating room, just go off the street and do whatever procedure they wanted to do. And after that, I worked as an occupational health nurse at General Motors, and that was a wonderful education to do that. I really learned a lot there. And it qualified me really to work in the emergency room, which probably is the best nursing I ever did. Kind of on the toes nursing, you have to be ready for whatever comes through the door. It's a lot of teamwork with everyone who takes care of trauma, which Ed probably knows. And I really did love that job. But as my children got a little bit to the adolescent stage, it was like, do I really want to be here during the evening when my kids are home? So I went into occupational health nursing at Bose, and I stayed through that. I was a little bored at first until I decided people shouldn't really be getting hurt, so why are they getting hurt? Which led me into taking over the safety area, and then about 85, hazardous materials came into being, and that job was given to me, and I said, I don't really know anything about chemicals, and my boss said, well, learn. And that was that. And I did that, for about 26 years, I think. And that was a very good job for me. So nursing has been very good to me.
So I'm Simone Carter. I got into nursing probably similarly to the same way as Nancy did. I'm from the Deep South, and pretty much you kind of were expected to either be a teacher or a nurse. And I knew I didn't want to be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. And I had brothers. So I also went through nursing school with a scholarship. And that's when they were first introducing the Bachelor of Science in Nursing. But we did 3 years of hospital clinicals, which I think made all the difference. And that's something that I have seen change. The clinical hands-on time that the students have now does not appear to be as rigorous with actual patient care, which I think does, the nurses are left really learning on the job, and not that we didn't all learn on the job, but it seems a bit more difficult now. What I would say is that what I love about nursing is helping people, actually you see people many times at their worst. And if you show up and you hold space for them in that moment, it can make all the difference in the world. And the other thing that I see is that nurses are the ones that connect the dots. And I will say I've done pretty much many different things over the course of my career, but critical care was very hard. It was very intense. The thing about critical care, though, is that you had a team. So even though it was excruciating and very difficult, you still had a whole team to back you up. And I would have to say that one of my most challenging jobs was doing community health nursing, because you don't have a team. You are all by yourself. And I think public health is also challenging because you spend a lot of your time figuring out how to make the system work. And I could go on all day about that, but I won't. But anyway, it's been a great career. What I would say that has frustrated me the most is over the course of my 30 years, and this started before I became a nurse. I would say it started very late 60s, early 70s, really got going in the 80s. And then when I was coming out of school in the 90s, there was this massive shift to for-profit healthcare. And I'm sorry, but healthcare and profit, they should not be linked that way. And what I have seen is that patient care has suffered because one of the easiest things for administrations to do is cut the nursing staff. And it makes it harder on the nurses, it makes it harder for the patients. And there's a lot of things that are not transparent. So that has been hard for me to watch. And I think what gives me the most joy now in public health is that I am able to step in and hopefully make a difference on a community level with these very issues.
So twice I've heard the word trauma, which I did chuckle a bit at because I once presented at then Framingham Union 40 years ago in a great case of trauma. And the care that I received and the duration of time that I was allowed to stay in traction at Framingham Union, I think probably was significant to the fact that today I can walk down the street.
Yes.
And very few people pick up on the fact that my step isn't quite right. And typically it's someone with a doctorate in physical therapy and they'll notice it. But I can walk just fine, I can ride my bike just fine, and there's no evidence of a difference in my leg length. I am not sure that would be the case today.
I don't think it's just your step that's off a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we call bedside manner.
Oh, boy.
But my experience during most of that time was with nurses. That was who came. I'm not going to. I don't want to downplay the surgeons. Dr. Senghaus, who was a longtime Hopkinton resident, who was the one in charge of putting me back together. I am forever in his debt. But I'm curious as to how you think, picking up from Simone's comment, how you think that care has changed with the goal of I'm giving some opinions here. What I believe is a false metric. A metric of what's important is the profitability of the structure of the hospital and the insurance company, and I believe the metric should be the welfare of the outcome of the patient.
So if I may, I'd love to speak to that. I think that the difference, so what are you in a hospital for? Yes, you need the surgery or you need the quick medical intervention of the physician or that expert, but you stay in the hospital for nursing care. And nursing care is, that is the key to your outcomes right there. Good quality nursing care. So I would tend to agree with you. I saw, again, when I was getting out of school is when all of the mental health clinics were being shut down, the community health clinics were being shut down, all in the name of cost savings. And we definitely, and I think we also have made strides that were good. Like, I don't think you need to be in the hospital for 2 weeks after having open heart surgery anymore. I think that it's good that we've made strides and now we can fast track folks out quicker because then they're less exposed to potential infection or the other things that come along with being in a hospital. But on the same hand, I have seen, especially when I went to community health nursing, the same folks being bounced in and out and sent home without ever being properly diagnosed. And then by the time they do get diagnosed, they're septic and they die. So there's got to be some way to meet that in the middle. And I do believe that it's better on a whole in Massachusetts when you look at the greater good. However, I will say that in Louisiana, I personally received better care. Now, was it a function of fewer people to take care of? Was it a function of my connections to the healthcare system in and of itself? Perhaps. I think that managed care, and since we went to the CARE Act, has made a lot of difference in enrolling more people in healthcare. But I can't say that it's the same experience for each person. The haves still have, the have-nots still don't. And I think, to finish up with that thought, something as obvious as public health, you realize our only source of funding that is guaranteed is our zip code. It's our towns. So until we start to address that larger gap and ensure equal access to nursing care with enough time for the person to heal, to learn the new gait, as you say, or learn the new skill, I see us at this tipping point right now with that. But feel free to expound.
You're up, young lady.
No. Well, I haven't worked in a hospital in a very, very long time. But I think to address some of the comments, we used to keep people in a striker frame forever and ever and ever. And then all of a sudden, it's, no, you're not going to be here on your back being barbecued, which is what they
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
did,
Yeah,
would
yeah.
flip people.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore. And they go home and the outcome is much better. So I think what I saw, at least when I was part of the system, was that people did much better when they were sent home than staying in the hospital. They needed more support at home, but on the other hand, I think people thrive in their own environment. So I think that was a very positive thing to see.
Yes.
Um,
So there are nuances. I should at least
Yeah.
coach there are nuances. So I totally agree with what you were saying.
Of course there are nuances.
Yes.
I mean, you could argue, would I have been better off to have been in traction at home? One of the benefits that I had was I was in a ward for
So
people.
you had
a
socialization.
lot of socialization, a lot of activity, a lot of things to pay attention to and build relationships with.
do they exist anymore?
I don't know.
That doesn't
For a bit.
exist anymore. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Not 4. I know of 2. I don't know of 4.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3, but
And
generally.
people are so
Yeah.
lonely.
So
But there was no privacy then
Yeah.
either. So
Right.
it was, there's two sides.
I get it.
Yeah.
So following on from that, for nursing care, we think of nurses as being, empathetic, but at some point in time, you have to balance being empathetic with somebody needing a kick in the butt.
Mhm.
That they're stuck and they can't get their head around where they are and they're depressed. And how do you deal with that?
Well, I think it's probably appropriate that you go to me because I'm fairly good at that. So I transitioned from correctional health to geriatric health. And I work, I'm the one that has to talk to the families when, I run dementia units as a rule, and that's kind of what
Do you have me on your list?
you don't remember me telling you? So we have, so like as people transition from living at home to an assisted living, to a secured unit in assisted living, to a rehab, long-term care, to, passing away, there's a lot of steps there. And I pride myself on being able to get a connection with my residents or their families. Anytime that we would get a new resident, the first, say, 3 months, it was probably the first 3 weeks was tough with the resident or patient because they were acclimating to a brand new environment. But the harder part is generally the families. So that your son or your daughter or your brother or your sister or your grandchild is now listening to you say, I don't want to be here. But truly, they need to be there because if they're home, they're going to walk out in the woods and they're not going to be found until the spring. So there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of feelings that the families have that project towards you that for the longest time, I just downplayed it. And I was able to get a rapport. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've eulogized or been a pallbearer at my patients' funerals, which doesn't mean I'm a bad nurse. It just means this stuff happens. And I thought I was almost to the point of arrogant that there's nobody, like I get this and there's nobody better at this than me. And then I was on the flip side when I had to be the one to make the decision to stop life for my father. And I went down in Florida and we didn't have a great relationship. And I went down, I'm like, this is going to be easy. It was not easy. And this is somebody that I saw once every 2 or 3 years and talked to every time he needed $1. He'd call me if he needed some money. And it was very hard on me. And it gave me a truly wonderful perspective on the emotions that you go through. So I can now I still feel that I'm the best at it, but I think I'm able to look at it through both sides of the lens. It's not an easy process, but as much as I think, whether I'm reading a book, through being taught that this is the right decision or my personal feelings that it's the right decision, now I know that there's really like a whole bunch of different kind of legs that feed the decision that makes it, and what makes it right and what makes it wrong. So for me, it's, a lot of people would have a hard time doing that. I don't have a hard time doing that whatsoever. I pride myself on having a great rapport and relationship with the families as well as the patients. And until you get that level of trust with the families, knowing when they leave there that their family member can't be at a better place, it's a rocky road. But it's amazing. It's like when you fracture a femur, they put that hair traction device on. You can, as they pull it out, you can just see the relief coming. As soon as they get that rapport with you, and as soon as they understand that it's not smoke and mirrors, that you're speaking from the heart, your life is very, very much easier from that.
Okay, so we're closing out on time here. I got a couple things. I want to talk about a couple books. And the book that I'm currently reading is called Healing Wounds. And this is about a woman who was it's an autobiography. She was a nurse in Vietnam, and she is the woman who keystoned the Nurses Monument in DC. And it's an incredible read. It is, I found some similarities, but being on the receiving end. So this is autobiographical. This is a novel. I have not started this book yet, so I can't speak to it, but those that I know that have read it have said that it is an excellent book. And I noticed, Simone, that you have the same book I have, so maybe we can both show this book.
They left us out. These guys
I can't read.
They're not team players. I like pictures.
So this is a book where Timothy Snyder went through his own healthcare crisis and wrote a book about it. And it's a pretty, I think, insightful book. So with that, I think I'll put a wrap on this, and I want to thank you all three for coming in and trusting me to not put you in a bad spot or embarrass you in any way. And I appreciate the friendship of all of you. And thank you for your nursing care.